Modification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent Training. Welcome to our live question and answer class. It's so nice to see so many of you here, and thank you for putting your questions in the chat. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat at any time. You can also leave comments on this video if you're watching it later on as a replay. At the start of class today, I want to talk about a question, a phrase. What are you going to do about it? And talk about how the written words are different than the spoken speech. So when you heard me say, what are you going to do about it? It sounds a lot different than if I were to say it word by word. What are you going to do about it? So let's talk about why. When we have fluent speech in English, there's many places where we link and we reduce. Linking is connecting words, and reducing is changing sounds or dropping sounds so that the speech is more fluent. The words that tend to get linked and reduced are usually the ones that are structure words. So they're less important to the meaning of the sentence, they go by more quickly, versus the content words tend to not get reduced, they might still get linked, and they're going to be longer, they're going to have clear vowels, they're going to have the stress. So in this phrase, our content words are the question word what, the verb going, and the verb do. Because of the pattern of stress and rules of English, do is going to be our stressed word here. What are you going to do about it? So do is the longest, held with a long clear vowel, and it doesn't get reduced. That means that the things that come before that stress word might be linked or reduced. So first thing that we do is in what are, we link those two together, and that means that we're going to flap that T. So it's going to sound a little bit more like a D sound, and I will write that as water. So the T becomes a flap, just like two Ds in the middle of a word like middle or bedding, and then my R gets reduced to more of an sound. So the only time that I'm going to say this R as a clear, full R sound is if I were stressing on it. What are you going to do about it? But in this case, R is not an important word. It's just the helping verb. It's not stressed. Do is where my stress lies. So my R can become an What are becomes water. And then what are you? Sometimes in some cases you becomes a little bit reduced to more of a ya sound. What are ya? So that's an option here. You can also leave it as a full you. What are you going? So I'll put that here as a ya or a you sound. That one doesn't matter too much as long as I'm not stressing on it or holding it too long. If it were stressed, what are you going to do about it? Then I would use my clear, full oo sound, you. What are you going to do about it? Then going to do, or going to, is also reduced and linked. So when I have an NG followed by a T sound, this T functions kind of more like a T in the middle of a word. So if I'm just saying to talk, to go, to be, then I reduce my to sound to a schwa, to ta. Sometimes I even think about that as like just a T with no vowel, to do. But because I have going to, I can do going to do, so I can use this one. But often when I have that that NG to the T, as I said, it makes the T act more like a T in the middle of words. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up flapping that T. So it sounds a little bit more like, what are you going to what are you going to do? So it's all right to do going to do, whichever one is easier for you to use. If I don't flap it, it's a true burst of air T, and just my oo sound becomes a schwa, to do. Excuse me. Or if I link it to the going, it's going to be going to. And then my do is my stressed word. I'll capitalize that here, give you a little bit of idea that has a clear vowel. I'm holding it longer. And then the last linking is that between about and it, the final T, how we say final T is determined by what follows. So if I had about that, I would use an unreleased T, about that, not let that T out and just release into the TH. But in about it, it gets flapped again. So I would say it more like about it. So that T sounds more like a D, or basically it becomes voiced and flapped about it. So what are you going to do about it becomes what are you going to do about it? You might also, for going to, sometimes we change that to gonna. That's often used in everyday speech. What are you going to do about it? Even sometimes in professional speech, it's fine to say gonna rather than going to or going to. If you're a little concerned that gonna sounds like poor grammar, we would never write this. We would always write going to. We might read going to as gonna, though, in casual speech or everyday speech. So what are you going to do about it? Or what are you going to do about it? Or what are you going to do about it? A lot of different varieties with going to. It's because it's such a common phrase. We use it so much. We have a lot of different ways to say it fluently, naturally, and easily in American English. So I always like to demonstrate kind of the real words or the written words versus the real spoken speech, what they look like, what they sound like. This is my real talk technique to help you become more fluent, understand what you're hearing and how it's so different from what you're reading and seeing and when you're learning English. You can get more help for this in our Fluent Speaking playlist here on the channel. Also in our Real Talk course on speechmodification.com, I walk you through lots of the linking and reductions that we do. We look at everyday phrases, we look at the rules and patterns, and we also look at TV and movies and how you can use those to improve your fluency by applying the Real Talk technique. So I hope you'll check that out. That's our Real Talk course, and it's on my website, speechmodification.com. Okay, I'll turn to your questions now. Nice to see so many of you here this morning. Not our usual day. We usually meet on Saturday, but this week on Saturday, I didn't have time in my schedule, so I'm glad you're able to join me today on Sunday. And let's turn to your questions. So we have a question about suffering, suffered, sufferings. So for the basic word, the root word suffer, we have first syllable stress, vowel schwa, like in such or fun. And then my second syllable is unstressed. We just have a little reduced sound there. So it sounds like, sa, not sha, suffer. When we add it to suffering, we just add an ing sound. Sufferings, then the letter S becomes a Z, sufferings. And suffered, even though we have an ED there, we just say a D sound. So you just add a D to your fur, suffered. Good, important words to cover. Thank you so much. Okay, and we have a question about if and can sound like in when speaking fast. Very good question. Yes, when I'm saying you and I, if I'm saying it slowly and enunciating you and I, then I will have the a vowel here and the D sound and I. But often we basically drop the a and the d, and it sounds more like you and I. So as we link it, you and I, the vowel either becomes kind of an I or almost no vowel sound. So you can think of it as in, you and I, but not with a clear in sound. You want it to be very reduced here. I like thinking of it as just an n by itself. You and I, sticks and stones, paper and plastic, red and yellow, one and two, etc. I do have a video and some lessons about the reduced and word, and there's a Fluent Speaking podcast coming up not next week, but the following week, where I talk about the reduction of and I give you a lot of examples for practice. So in our podcast videos and our podcast series on podcast stations, we take some of these practical techniques on the go, give you lots of practice where you can listen and shadow and repeat so that you can apply what you learn in the lessons and really begin to practice and make those to be more of a motor habit in your speech. So check that out. That's coming up on the channel. And of course, resources like that are also available in our Real Talk course. Thank you for that question. Okay, we have a question about angry, the word angry, and then the phrase, excuse me, I was really angry. So let's check this out. So for angry, we have the a vowel followed by the ng sound, the ng sound. First syllable stress. So it's going to sound like ang, and then I missed my G sound, and gree. So we have an ng plus a G. Sometimes when we have the ng in the middle of a word or at the end of the word, like in singer, there's no g sound. In finger, there is a g sound. So I do have a video breaking that down, how to know which to say when. Angry is an example of having the ng sound and the G sound. Angry, angry. And you'll notice that your a sound here in this doesn't feel as open. It tends to get a little raised and nasalized because of the ng sound. So if I said that and angry, the vowel may not sound exactly the same, but I'm still making this a vowel. It's just influenced by what's following it with the ng sound. So the angry by itself, and then you wanted to hear, I was really angry. I was really angry. I was really angry. So the was gets a little reduced to kind of a shorter z sound, going right from the w to the z, not so much vowel. I was really angry. Okay, hopefully you're no longer really angry, but you can say it correctly if you want to. Thank you for that request. Okay. Yes, this is American English pronunciation, to answer that question. We have a question about disingenuous. So, disingenuous. I'll check that I spelled it correctly. No, I-O-U-S. Disingenuous. Disingenuous. I think it does have a U there. Disingenuous. Yeah, because it's like the word genuine. So genuous. So we have a little secondary stress on the dis to show that it's that it's not genuine, but rather disingenuous. And then our main stress is on the gen syllable. This letter G says the j sound like in jump. So that's, the symbol is this. Letter E says the S sound, gen. And then this is a U that has a y and an U sound. Genuous. So writing that out would be dis in gen u us. Disingenuous. And as we move from this rounded U to our unrounded schwa, us, you'll hear there's a little bit of a w sound that happens there. So we don't have to insert that. It should just naturally happen as we move from the rounded to the unrounded vowel. But we want to make sure that's there, because if it's not, those two syllables might collapse and not sound like two syllables. It'll sound like disingenuous rather than disingenuous, us. And anytime I'm moving from the rounded vowel to an unrounded vowel, we use vowel-to-vowel linking, and that's where that w sound kind of sneaks in there. For this word, I would suggest start on the stress syllable, genuous, and then add your first two syllables back. Sounds like genuous, disingenuous, disingenuous. You can hear how the unstressed syllables are pretty short. Their vowels might be a little bit reduced, and we have that length and clear vowel on our stressed syllable of gen. Great word. Thank you so much for that request. Okay, we have a question about coronary. Thank you so much for being a channel member and welcome. I'm glad to see you here today. So for coronary, I almost had a coronary listening to that candidate. Let's go for first syllable stress, core. The letters OR do say or in this word because they're stressed. So we have core. My second letter O is a schwa. It's unstressed. It's a reduced vowel. Cora. And then my AR in this word say the air diphthong. So it sounds like core, nair, e. Coronary. Coronary. So the coronary artery, a coronary event, etc. Okay, and then you were also asking about candidate. So people do say candidate, or candidate. This candidate, I think normally it's most correct to use the it sound, but the candidate, we do use both in American English. So for one comment is that we have first syllable stress. People will say also, sometimes they drop the D. So one way is candidate. Another way, candidate with the A. And then the same thing you can do candidate. So this D here is sort of optional. So there's basically four ways. Candidate or candidate, candidate or candidate. Yeah, it's kind of a strange word. Generally, ND is a little bit like NT, where we sometimes drop the T. For example, we don't always say interview. Sometimes we say interview. And then ATE, usually those words are divided one or the other, like associate is the noun and associate is the verb. But in candidate, we just use those interchangeably, both for the noun. Great questions and topical for, of course, the election coming up this week. So yeah, we should probably cover some other election words. In the next few days, we'll be probably talking about it in at the workplace and with our friends. It's a big topic of discussion at the moment, of course. Thank you for that question. Okay, we have a question about where, we're, and were, and whether they're the same. So no, they're not. And I do have a video breaking these down and talking about what happens with them. So let's go through that for you. So we have where, we're, and were. So by themselves, where has the air sound. Where are we? Where were you? Etc. That's where we were. Sometimes it may get a little reduced and that air won't be as clear. That's where we were. It's never going to go all the way to an sound, but it sometimes might not be such a clear air, but it should have at least some element of air. That's where we were. We're, when we're saying it and it's stressed, has the ear sound like the word ear. We're doing it. I think we're having it. But it does often get reduced in fast speech. I think we're doing it to be more like just the same as were, which is the sound, were. And then yes, were is just the sound, were. We were happening. We were going there. So it's the same as this were, like the whir of an engine, if that helps you to... This one's a little tricky to think about how it's spelled. The ERE can do air, it can do ear, it can do depending on the word. So it's definitely very tricky. This wear is the same as this wear as in wear clothes, and this wear as in warehouse or goods and wares. So yeah. This is really often making sure that you're spelling the correct one, but visualizing, you can think of this one as where. Where in the air might be a good phrase to use to remember that. We're here, if you're using the full version, we're here if you're going to use this one. And we were worried, or we were worrying, kind of having that sound for this one. Yeah, okay. After class, if this wasn't clear enough to you, please leave a comment and I'll direct you to my video where I walk through these in a little bit more detail, but that's the basic gist of those words. And if you're watching this now later on as a replay, if you have questions following up on something that we talked about in class or your own question, you can put those in comments. I do go through those after class, send you links or show you materials on the website or here on the channel that will answer your question, or I can add your words or questions to my list to cover in a future video. Okay, we have time for a couple more questions. So nice to see so many of these great questions from all of you today. Thank you for those. We have a question about close. So close to me and close the door. So I do have a video for this as well. So close, the verb, we have a Z sound, close, and close, the adjective, it's not a noun, is the S sound. So same spelling, but different sounds. I'm very close to going over to close the door. Also, while we're talking about it, the word clothes has a th and a z sound, but we often just say that like the verb close. So even native speakers, it's a little bit tricky to say clothes. So often we might just say, I'm going to put my clothes in the closet and I'll close the door once I'm close to finishing. Very good. Excellent question. Thank you. Okay. We have a question about the word hotel, that it sounds like hotel to keep remembering. You were using who and tell to keep remembering it. So the only thing is that for hotel, you're right that we want to use thinking of it like tell, but rather than who with an oo vowel, you need an o sound. So hotel. And this one's going to be pretty fast. If I think about hotel, I'm going to have the wrong vowel and I might have too much length on that first part. So we don't want really a who there, but rather hotel. One thing I do with things that are stressed on the second syllable to try to remember the rhythm is, for example, using a word like or the. So I might say a tell, the tell. That kind of helps me know that tell is important, and then I put back the other sound. A tell, the tell, hotel. You could also use, sometimes there's a joke about like the no-tell motel, the no-tell motel, or the no-tell hotel. So maybe no-tell might be better than who-tell for remembering. No-tell hotel. Okay, yes. Thank you for that follow-up, and thank you for being here another week. We have a question about S followed by words starting with TH. So a word ending with S followed by a word starting with TH. Yes, there are. Yes, these can. It's these. So basically for this patterning, what you're looking at doing is for the S sound, if I'm saying it's or yes, my tongue is behind my teeth and it's flat. The tip of my tongue is probably down, maybe up, but then I have to bring my tongue forward for the TH sound. So if I'm saying yes, those, yes, these, it's those, it's these, it's the best, it's the, maybe for the TH, my tongue won't come as far out because I've just come from an S sound. It's the best. But basically, I just have to bring the tongue forward. What I would say is, if it helps you, do the, then add the S sound, stha, and then it's the, or yes, the. You're just trying to break down where you're having difficulty and just work on doing those sounds. Or even say the S sound, s, and then the TH sound, that. Just break it down for the motor patterning of it, and then try to use a lot of combinations of words where you have to go back and forth. It's just a cumbersome movement right now for you, probably because the TH isn't strong in your inventory and you found that this is a place where that's difficult for you. Thank you for returning and asking your question again, and I hope that technique helps you and we'll cover it. I do have a video talking about linking to TH where I think I do talk about S to TH and Z to TH because a lot of people have that difficulty as well as you. Okay, wonderful. Question about whether genius and disingenuous sound the same. So no, genius has the E. It's stressed here. Well, so is disingenuous, but in genius, it's the E sound. So it's like genius. Genius. Probably easier to see it this way. Genius. But disingenuous, has another letter there and also different vowel sounds, as you saw earlier in the class. Okay, and we have a question about the word oil. Yeah, this is a little bit tricky because we have the oi diphthong, and then we have the ul sound. So when you look in the dictionary, you're just going to see oi and ul. But if I try to do oi, ul, oil, it's really hard to do. That's because, again, we're moving from a rounded, or actually in this case, it's rounded and then it's a front vowel. And then we have, before our dark L at the end, we have a little bit of a schwa sound or an sound. And so we have some vowel to vowel linking between our I, or the finish of our oi, and our So I like to think about it like oil. So we're actually going to say something for this y sound because we're moving through that shape. So think about it almost as though it were two syllables. Oil, yul. If you can say the word yul, like you'll be there, or think about the word wool, and then take this off, you're going to have the ul sound of that. Maybe easier would be pull, and then think of that without the P, just ul, and then oil. I do have a video talking about words like oil, toil, boil, etc., as well as vowel to vowel linking before the L sound. This is also something I cover in my Sounds of English course on speechmodification.com. A lot of people have difficulty with these L sounds at the end, and it's really actually about the vowel to vowel linking before the L that's going to give you the difficulty. So recognizing that there's these sort of hidden sounds there, a y sound like in oil, or a w sound like in towel, those tend to be difficult, but once you break down the sounds, say it slow and speed it back up, it should become easier to do oil. So again, kind of oil. Same sounds, but fast. Great, that's a really good question. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll have time for a couple more quick questions, and then we'll need to wrap up for today. We have a question about some medical terms. So we have neuron. So neuron. I'm not sure where the pro comes in, if you have pro neuron. Ner is just like an sound. And then the O here is an sound, neuron. We have a question about quadrant. We have, my pens are all drying up here. Quadrant, first syllable stressed, qua. And then this gets reduced to just a drunt. A little I sound there, or a schwa, drunt. Almost no vowel, quadrant. Thoracic. stressed on the ra. We have the ah, black cat there. So th, ra, like rat, and sick, thoracic. Lumbar, first syllable stress, lumbar. AR does say R, the ah and R, lumbar. Unlike lumber, the wood, has the sound, but this one does have the true R, lumbar, even though it's stressed on lum. Yeah, okay. And then sure, that's just the S says SH, so then we have the sound, sure. So a lot of medical terms and somewhat related terms. Hopefully, it was a very quick pass through those, but hopefully that was enough for you to be able to correct and understand the pronunciation of those. Okay, and then we had a question about is this. So again, that's the, or is this. This S sound says a Z. So in this case, is this, was this. Same technique I was talking about for the S to TH, but my voice is on. Is this, it was that. And that one I definitely have covered in my linking video. So I'll try to remember, or you can leave a comment after class asking me for the link to that video. You can also go on our community page or our channel page. There's a search box there on the right side after you look at like home, videos, etc. Go to the search box that's specifically on the channel, and if you type in your phrase, your question, your sound, your word that you're looking for, and you press search, it'll show you all the videos I have related to that topic. So it's a great way to use the resources here on the channel. Of course, if you're not finding what you're looking for, I do also recommend leaving a comment on this video or any video, and I'll do that research for you and let you know if I've covered your topic, or I'll add it to my list to cover in a future class. Thanks so much. It's nice to see so many people here today. I'll just try to do a quick question, quick answer to the last few questions. So oil is not the same as aisle. So aisle has the I diphthong, but aisle also does have vowel to vowel linking. So aisle, that actually is the same as this, aisle, and it's the I diphthong plus the L, and you'll have the little y and sound. So it sounds like aisle, aisle. Oil is the oi diphthong, and aisle is the I diphthong. And then if we're emphasizing words like with E, like bed, do we change the into an and ya? So like iya. So like, do I say, like in Philadelphia, do I say bed, sat? No, not really. We just hold the S sound longer. Bed, set. I wouldn't recommend adding in or introducing any other diphthong sounds there. Okay, and then a bite to eat. A bite to eat. You can say it as a bite to eat, but we tend to reduce this. A bite to eat. Bite to eat becomes more of a schwa sound, and we only need one T here. A bite to eat. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Wonderful questions today, and it's nice to see so many of you here. I'll be back again probably on a regular Saturday time next week. You can check the channel for the upcoming live streams, and I look forward to seeing you then. We have some great videos coming up the next few weeks. Watch for those during the week and check out our community page to see what's coming up. Take some little quizzes, get some insights, see new and old videos highlighted. Thanks so much for being a part of the class today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound like a native speaker, you can do it. speechmodification.com. Bye, everyone. Great to see you today.